Good morning, everybody. It is so wonderful to be kicking off Longmont Startup Week this morning, and we have a mindful morning with me each morning to start us out, and just such an amazing lineup of panelists and speakers. So let's go ahead and get started with our mindful morning. And I'd like to just give you an opportunity to, right now, just start to shift from whatever your morning was like. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my morning this morning, which will fit really nicely into what we're talking about. But just go ahead and take an opportunity to sort of locate yourself, if you will. If it's helpful, you can close your eyes. I like to do that. And if you don't like to close your eyes, you can just drop your gaze for a moment. And if you would, just notice your body breathing. No need to do anything special. Just witnessing the breath as it comes and goes from your body. Just giving yourself this opportunity to be in this moment. The simple activity of following your breath. The utterly amazing quality of your body, how it knows how to breathe without any help. And I'd like you to ask yourself this question. How am I right now? In this moment. Just find your body breathing again. And I'll ask you the question 2 more times. How are you right now? And you may have already had an active morning, or maybe you're just waking up. Connecting with this question to start your day. And one last time. How are you right now? We're going to start to transition from this mindful practice, and if you would, just notice what your answer was. Did it stay the same, or did it change? This question about how are you right now? And as you're ready, and as we drop the practice together, you can open your eyes if they're closed. Sort of give yourself a moment also to sort of reorient to the room that you're in. And I'll talk here for a bit, and I'll keep talking about transition moments. So these are really important moments in our everyday life that are happening all the time, and oftentimes we miss those moments that are small pauses in the day where we can come back to ourselves and check in and get grounded. So we're going to transition to me talking here a bit, and we've got a little bit more practice. And then at the end of our time, I'll offer a few things for you to consider in everyday practice. So I'd like to just talk a minute about what is mindfulness, what is mindful awareness, and how are we engaging with this idea of mindful practice. So these practices that we're going to be using this week they're ancient practices. They are more than 25,000 years old. And over time, and more particular in the last 10 and 20 years, there have been many folks that have contributed to taking these ancient practices and making them more accessible to us in our everyday life. So we are practicing something that people have been practicing for so long. And you'll notice I'll keep saying practice, because everything we do, we need to be able to repeat over and over to deepen the practice. So you'll get some tastes of that this morning and throughout the rest of the week. But as you practice, you'll start to notice that things are revealed in the way that you start to pay more attention to yourself. So there's 2 qualities here that we're working with The mindful part is this focus and attention piece. But we're doing that in a really particular way. We're bringing also compassion and kindness. There's a tenderness to that attention. So I'm sure you've had those experiences like I have of having really precise attention, right, and really focused. And that may be for a work task you're doing or some sort of project that you're on. But oftentimes when we're really focused, we lose connectivity with how to be kind, even to ourselves. So we're cultivating this whole idea of being able to be aware and focused on what's going on, and then also bringing a certain kind of attention that's kind and tender with interest, right, this compassion. So what you'll notice is that these practices will help you quiet your mind. If you're anything like me too, like I know I have a really active mind. And one of the myths of mindful practice, in particular meditation, is people have the thought, right, that becoming a mindful practitioner or practicing meditation means that you're not going to have any thoughts. But that's actually a myth, because the mind is doing what the mind does well. It's thinking, and trying to get it to not do what it likes to do and what it does really well can get pretty tricky, because your mind will start to think even more as you try to tell it not to do that. So what we're talking about here about quieting our mind is actually potentially having fewer thoughts, but putting space in between thoughts. So as we practice, just notice when you have a lot of mind activity, really the practice is just to start to have a little bit of space in between those thoughts. And then over time, stretching that space out some. When our mind is really active, our heart goes offline, right? The mind just takes over everything. So the reason we're interested in quieting the mind some and putting space in between those thoughts is so our heart will actually show up and trust that it can come into some of those spaces that we're creating with information that the heart might have, right? How we're feeling in that framework. So we're quieting the mind and opening the heart. What this also does is it takes us out of the trance we live in our everyday life, right? So many of us are quite active in our lives, and we get up in the morning and sort of the day happens, and the next thing we know, we're going to bed at night. So we live in this really amplified activity. And really the promise that these practices hold is that we don't need to not be active. We actually can just be in a different relationship to that activity. So this isn't about, slowing your life down or doing less in particular. It's about paying attention to what's going on in any moment and then engaging from perhaps a different place. So I'm going to give you just this morning anecdote. So I was up early this morning, and I was kind of going over my notes, and I live in Boulder, and I drove to Longmont. I get to Longmont, I get out of my car, and I start to look for my notes in my backpack. And there are no notes in my backpack. So I had that moment. It's like, okay, here I am going to offer this talk this morning, and I have a moment to practice. So I started looking more in my backpack and started going back in my mind, where could my notes be? And then I had the thought, well, okay, I can probably do the talk without my notes. And I was noticing oof, that feels a little hard. And then my phone rang, and it was my wife. And she was at home, and she said, your notes are here on the kitchen counter. And I was like, oh, so I'm thinking about doing the talk without my notes. And I'm, working with my experience, and she says, well, I can take a picture of them for you, and you could use them that way. And I was like, yes, what a grand idea, I love that. And then she said, you must be a little nervous. And I wanted to say so badly, no, I'm not nervous. No, not nervous at all. I just ran out without my notes. I couldn't possibly be nervous. And then I said, yeah, I'm probably a little nervous. So it just really shifted my whole morning, right? And then I walked back to my truck just a little bit ago because I have a clock I like to use. And as I was walking up to my truck, I was just listening to the sounds of a small town, feeling the air moving across my face, and then walking back. So all was actually just fine. Now, I'm not trying to say that that's always what happens in my experience. There are certainly times when I'm not that put together. Certainly in my early life, I probably would have freaked out if I didn't have my notes. But I'm sharing that as a way for you to see, like, meeting each moment, and when you have a way to do that, somehow your life starts to shift in the way that things aren't happening to you as much as you're a part of what's going on. So that's how we build this home base that we talk about, right? So the body is our home base. The reason we practice with our breath is because the breath is always present. So it can be very helpful. Later in the week, we'll practice with sensations in the body because not everyone relates the same to their breath, so I'll give you some options to be able to do that. Now, throughout the week, we're going to be using an acronym called RAIN, and that will shape how we're talking about mindful awareness throughout the week. You can come to all of these meetings, talks, you can attend one of them. RAIN doesn't need to be practiced in order, like the acronym, R-A-I-N. So those are offered in individual sessions that you can attend. So let me just tell you what RAIN is. The first R is recognize, and then A is allow. So you want to let something that you're aware of, you recognize something, and then you want to allow that to hang out for a minute so you can kind of get to know and see what's going on. And that is the part of the mindful part of the practice. Recognize and allow. And then where compassion comes in is in this inquiry, the I of RAIN. That's where we really start to, with a lot of tenderness and gentleness, we start to make an inquiry about what's happening for us. And then lastly, the compassion of N is nourish, where we really take a moment as we practice in our life to ask ourselves what we most need in any given moment. So that's kind of the shape of the next 4 mornings if you're able to attend those. So I'm going to invite you again to have a transition moment here, and we're going to practice just for a few more minutes together. And what I'd like you to do is find an upright yet relaxed posture if you're sitting. If you're lying down, the same. Just allow your body to feel relaxed yet upright. One way to work with the body in this way is about 75% upright. So if you go all the way up and then allow the body to be about just 75% upright. So a little bit relaxed. And we're going to go back to the question that we started with. How are you right now? Just let that question be entertained for a moment. Are you the same or different than just a little bit ago when we used this question? How are you right now as a way to bring you into the moment that you're experiencing as opposed to the meeting you may need to go off to or some other details you might need to attend in your life. Just in this moment, how are you right now? And then take a moment to check in. How are you in your mind? What's going on with your thoughts right now? And how are you in your heart, your emotions, your feelings? And then how are you in your body? Just seeing what you notice. As you consider how you are in your thoughts, in your feelings and emotions, and in your body, there may be something that connects those experiences, or they could be really quite different. And then one last time. How are you right now? And as you're ready, you can drop that practice. If your eyes are closed, you can open them. And just take a moment to, as your eyes are now open, consider that experience of checking in with yourself, having a home base, coming back to yourself over and over throughout the day. That's available to you. So as we head into our days, what I'd love to offer for practice for today is to actually look for those transition moments. Right? It's the when you reach for your phone, or you take a drink of water, or you walk through a door, or you greet a person, or you have a moment of, I don't have my notes. Whatever those moments are, to just see that you're transitioning constantly throughout the day, so that we have all these opportunities to wake up in a moment and come back to ourselves and check in. How am I doing? What's going on for me here? And then go right back into your life, into the next task to do, the next meeting, the next challenge, the next happy, wonderful thing. And see what happens, see what comes up. So appreciate you joining us today. So appreciate your time and your attention. There's just so much to offer and to know about mindful awareness. So if your schedule allows, I hope you'll join us for 4 more times of being together. And tomorrow we will look at the R of rain, recognize. And that's really starting to work in a place we're all most familiar, which is in our mind, right? Helping the mind wake up to what's going on. And then we'll be practicing with our body as well, recognizing what's going on in our bodies, and then also recognize what's going on in our emotions. So I hope you have a beautiful day. I hope it is easeful in some surprising way. And I'll look forward to hopefully seeing you again tomorrow. Thanks for joining. Be well, friends.